Hello viewers, welcome back to our series of lectures on chemical bonding. In today's session, we will take up lattice energy and its determination. The session is planned as follows, that is, to begin with, we will briefly recall what we done in the previous session, and then thereafter we will come down to lattice energy. We will define what is it, and then thereafter we will see that how do we determine lattice energy. In this process of determination, we will take up two approaches. The first one is the theoretical considerations, that is, how do we theoretically work out what is the lattice energy for a given ionic solid, and in the process we will try to work out Born-Landes equation. Having done that, we will come down to the experimental determination of lattice energy. In this process, we will talk about the Born-Haber cycle, and towards the end we will sum up what we do in today's session. Okay. Now, you will recall that when we talk about ionic bonding, according to Courcelle, the bond formation basically kind of involves transfer of electrons, that is, it could be a gain or loss of an electron, and typically we have been taking this example number of times, that is the formation of NaCl from sodium and chlorine. So, in that case what happens is the sodium atom, an electron from the sodium atom is transferred to a chlorine atom, and in the process what happens is that sodium is losing an electron, chlorine atom is gaining an electron, and the process what we get two ions there. Sodium becomes sodium cation and chlorine atom becomes chloride anion here. And once these two ions are formed, these two ions are kind of attract each other electrostatically and they form what is called as a ionic bond. And this whole process, if we look at a larger scale, we can represent in the following way, that is, we have got a sodium atom which is transferring electron to chlorine atom, the chlorine atom becomes chloride ion and sodium becomes sodium ion, and then these ions there, sodium ion and chloride ion, they all, a large number of them will put together, they will form a crystal of this kind, and this is what is called as formation of NaCl, and the energy released in this process is referred to as lattice energy, because essentially from the ions we are getting a lattice here. Now, so taking clue from here, we can define lattice energy to be the energy evolved when 1 mole of crystal is formed from its constituent gaseous ions. That is very, very important. That is, the ions which are going to combine together, they must be in the gaseous phase there. And second thing we have to take note of is that when it refer to lattice energy, it refers to 1 gram mole of the crystal. That is very, very important. It is not that only one speck is formed, so that is lattice energy. No, it is for 1 mole of the crystal to be formed. Okay. Now, if we just take the example of NaCl, which we just discussed here, though the lattice energy for NaCl will correspond to the following reaction, that is, wherein sodium ions in the gaseous phase will react with or combine with chloride ions in the gaseous phase to give NaCl crystals there. So, 1 mole of this reaction, the energy for that is referred to as the lattice energy. Now, that is again the same thing what we showed earlier, that is, the sodium and chloride ions are combining together to give us the lattice of sodium chloride. Okay. Now, let us move further and see that we just talked about a simple 1:1 salt. Suppose I got a salt like MXN type. So, in that case, how do I represent lattice energy? For such a case of MXN type, the lattice energy is given by the following expression, that is, the energy released when 1 mole of Mn plus ion in the gaseous phase reacts with n mole of X minus ions in the gaseous phase and gives us a mole of the solid or the crystalline MXN over there. So, that is a generalized expression for lattice energy. Another thing which we have to take note of is this lattice energy is generally very high. It is a large amount of energy released here. The reason for that, say for NaCl, the value happens to be about 782 kilojoules per mole, which is an enormously large amount of energy. And the reason for this is that this whole process of lattice formation is that involves the electrostatic interaction between the oppositely charged ions, and this ion-ion interaction is very strong. So, the energy happens to be large because of strong electrostatic attraction between the ions of opposite charge. Okay. So, that is about what is lattice energy and why is it so high. If we move further and just have a look at the following data here, this table basically compiles the lattice energy for a large number of ionic solids over there. And what we gather from here is, if I just try to analyze that, we find that the magnitude of lattice energy depends on a few things there, and they happen to be the charge on the ions, the sizes of the ions, and the arrangement of the ions in the solid. So, we are not getting into details of analysis of this. The only thing which I wanted to bring home is that firstly the lattice energy is a big number, and secondly it depends on the following three things there: the charges, sizes of the ions, and arrangement of ions in the solid or the crystal. Now, if I just look further, there is another way of looking at lattice energy, because we just defined lattice energy when 1 mole of a crystalline solid is formed from the constituent ions in the gaseous phase. Another perspective of the same thing could be, that is, we can define lattice energy in terms of the energy required or needed to convert an ionic solid into its constituent gaseous ions. Again, we have to bear in mind that when we refer to ionic solid, essentially we are referring to 1 mole of it. That is, we are talking about a process of this kind, wherein NaCl in the crystalline phase dissociates or breaks down to give us sodium ions and the chloride ions, or probably this is a pictorial representation of the same thing. That is, we have got a lattice there, and the lattice breaks down to give us the individual ions in the gaseous phase. So, the energy required for this process is also called as lattice energy. The only thing between this definition and the previous one will be, one is energy released, it will be negative number there, and in this case it is energy absorbed, which will be a positive number there. Otherwise, the two are equivalent to each other, the only thing is the sign of it. Okay. Let us go further. Let us see that how do we determine lattice energy, and then as I mentioned earlier, there are two ways of doing it which we are going to take up today. The first one is theoretical considerations. That means, how do I theoretically work out what is going to be the lattice energy for a given solid or given crystalline solid over there. And the second approach is the thermochemical determination using Born-Haber cycle. The first one is a theoretical consideration, and second happens to be an experimental determination. So, we will talk about both the ways of determining the lattice energy there. Now, let us begin with the theoretical estimation of lattice energy. What we see is that theoretical estimation is based on what is called as an electrostatic model. Electrostatic model, because we know that the interaction between the oppositely charged ions in the crystalline lattice happen to be electrostatic in origin there. And the model goes as follows, that is, the ions in the lattice are considered as the point charges. That is the first point of it, that is the way we look at a lattice here. So, all these kind of dots shown over there, the bold ones and the empty ones over there, they all represent a point over there. That is the first part of it. And secondly, what we do is, we look at any one ion we take there and then try to see how many neighbors are there, what kind of interaction is there between this ion and all neighboring ions there, and the subsequent ions also. That means, we basically work out the energy of electrostatic attraction or interaction between a given ion and its neighbors, near neighbors, and the next to near neighbors, and so on and so forth. That is, we try to see that if I look at the whole lattice, if I look at my focus onto one particular ion, this particular ion is in interaction with large number of ions in the neighborhood over there. So, what is the direct interaction with the immediate neighbors? What happens vis-a-vis this particular ion and the ions next to the next one, and so on and so forth. So, we try to work out all possible interactions and then try to see what is the net result of that. We work it out theoretically, and with that we come down to a certain expression which gives us a way of looking at the lattice energy on the theoretical basis there. Okay. Now, in order to appreciate or understand this, what do? Is we first try to see that suppose I have got just one pair of oppositely charged ions, what is the interaction between them? Let us understand that first. Now, suppose I have got two ions there, say of Z plus charge here, this of Z minus charge here. The two ions are separated by a distance r here. So, let us try to work out what is the interaction between the two, and that we know is given by the following expression, that is delta U, the interaction energy between these two ions, happens to be minus of Z plus into Z minus E square by 4 pi in epsilon naught r joules. Now, let us understand what does it mean. Z plus basically refers to, it is a modulus of the positive charge. Suppose the charge happens to be plus 2, so it is 2, and Z minus is the modulus of the negative charge. Basically, we talk about the charges in the modulus form of it. Okay. So, for minus 2 it will be 2 again, and E happens to be the charge on the electron, we all know that. This basically is an expression from Coulomb's law, minus Z E square by r, that is all. And this epsilon naught happens to be the permittivity of the vacuum, and then we have got r as the internuclear distance, and this happens to be in meters. So, if I just try to put all these parameters into expression, I get the delta U value or the energy of interaction between these two ions in terms of joules over there. That is for one pair of ions there. But what we need to do is, we need to talk about a given ion and all possible interactions it can undergo. Let us see how do we go about it. To understand that, let us go further and see that if I have a lattice there, let me just imagine that is I have got a series of oppositely charged ions arranged linearly here. And if I focus my attention onto this central ion over which has been encircled with red here, if I look at this particular ion, what do I find? That this ion has got one next neighbor here of a negative charge here at a distance r from it. That means the distance between this nucleus and this nucleus happens to be r here. Similarly, on this direction also, that means on both the directions, on the positive side and the negative side, at a distance of r it has got a negative ion over there. At a distance of 2 r it has got a positive ion, at a distance of 3 r it has got a negative ion, and so on and so forth. That means if I look kind of focus my attention onto this particular ion, it has got so many neighbors around this. If I try to work out what is the interaction between this ion and all these ions over there, let us try to see what do we get. If I look at this ion and these two next neighbors only, what do I get? The interaction will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, that is a constant over there, and then it will be minus of 2 z square by r, z square by r for this interaction and z square by r for this interaction. So, the two will put together will be minus 2 z square by r. Similarly, for the next neighbor here, so this will be plus 2 z square by 2 r now, because the distance happens to be 2 r now, and it is positive, it means it is a repulsive term there. This is negative, this is an attractive term, because the charges are opposite here, they are opposite charges and they happen to be identical charges, they will repel each other. So, this way we can work out, we will work out there and we just make a little simplification, and if I solve this series what I get in the brackets here, what do I get? I get all these things put together to be a constant A called as Madelung's constant. We will talk little more about it in a short while from now. Okay. Now, and see that suppose I want to look into the lattice energy for a salt Mx having NaCl type structure. So, what do I get? So, in this salt Mx there will be an Mn plus ion here, and this ion, the cation here, will be surrounded by 6 anions, say Xz minus type anions. There will be at a distance of r there, and there will be 12 cations again at a distance of root 2 r. There will be 8 anions at a distance of root 3 r, and there will be again 6 cations at a distance of 2 r. So, this is the details. If you look into the structure in fair detail, so that is a kind of neighbors it will have. That means, any cation in this lattice is going to have so many neighbors over there. And if this be so, if I try to work out now, and if I try to look into the Coulombic interaction of any cation which is into lattice here and all these neighbors there, what do I get? I get an expression of this kind, and this expression is delta u is equal to minus a z plus z minus e square by 4 pi epsilon naught r, and then this a is what is called as a Madelung's constant, which I referred in just short while before. Okay. Now, if I go further, if I got 1 mole of Mn plus ions, what do I get? I get the same expression multiplied by Na, where Na happens to be the Avogadro's number there. So, this delta u expression given here corresponds to energy involved in the interaction of 1 mole of Mn plus ions with all its possible neighbors in the lattice over there. And in this expression, as I just mentioned, Na happens to be Avogadro's number and A is the Madelung's constant there. Now, this Madelung's constant we defined mathematically just short while before actually depends on the geometry of the crystal. And if you look at for NaCl, which I just described here, the value can be computed as follows. We can see that it will be A will be equal to 6 minus 12 by root 2 plus 8 by root 3 and so on and so forth. So, remember that there are 6 neighbors, 12 neighbors, 8 neighbors and so on and so forth, and these happen to be the corresponding distances over there. So, root 2 r, root 3 r and so on and so forth. If I just simplify this comes out to be a number as 1.74756, and that is the typical value of NaCl. Okay. So, that is what is the meaning of Madelung's constant. It is a constant here. Say for cesium chloride structure it is 1.76267 and so on and so forth. For zinc sulphide this is the number here. So, Madelung constant can be worked out on the basis of the geometry of the crystal there. Okay. Let us go a little further and see that this is the expression what we got here. And in this expression, if we try to analyze this, we find that a few observations here, that is the negative value energy. That means, this negative indicates that this energy is going to be released. That means, the energy will be liberated in the process, because this expression has a negative here. Okay. The second observation is the intra-ionic distance r appears in the denominator. That means we have got r over here. That means smaller the r, larger is the lattice energy. That means if the ions are very small, they are close by, if the r happens to be small, the lattice energy will be more. And if we go further reducing this, mathematically speaking, if r happens to be 0, then the energy will be infinite. So, that seems to be slightly paradoxical, but the fact is that we can never have r to be equal to 0. The reason being, as I try to bring my ions closer and closer, when they become much too close, they actually do not attract, they start repelling each other. When they start repelling each other, we need to modify this expression. And that repulsion, what is called as the intra-ionic repulsion, they have to be considered. And that actually was done by Born. What Born suggested was that at such short distances, the electron-electron and nucleus-nucleus repulsions become reasonably meaningful or significant, and these forces of repulsion are called as Born forces. And this were worked out into the following expression, that is delta U to be equal to N A into B by R raised to power N. N A is again Avogadro's constant, B is a repulsion constant, the coefficient over there, and this N happens to be Born's coefficient there. So, that is what we have, N is Born's exponent or coefficient, and B is the repulsion coefficient there. Okay. Now, if we just try to work out this, N is very important here, the Born exponent actually is roughly proportional to the number of nearest neighbors there. So, in case of NaCl, we got 6 of them or 8 of them, whatever it is. So, that is what is important here. Further, what you see is that is the repulsive forces, that is this delta U here, this increases rapidly as R decreases. The reason for this increase is that in the denominator we have got R raised to power N, that is this exponent is there in the denominator here, and this number N happens to be a little large number, 4, 6, 8 or 12 or whatever. So, what you find is if R decreases slightly, this denominator decreases very significantly, because N is a large number there. As a consequence, our delta U will increase rapidly over there. Okay. Now, what happens? What happens is, if I try to see what is the total overall expression, what we had is, we have a lattice, we are looking onto one particular ion there. We are trying to see that how does this ion interact electrostatically with all its possible neighbors there, neighbors, the next neighbors, next to near neighbors, and so on and so forth. So, we see that what is the attractive influence of them all. Then we see that what is the repulsive influence. Then we put the two together, what we get is an overall expression, and that expression looks something like this. So, what you find is, in this expression of delta U, this the first term actually is the attractive term, that is how we have got a negative here, and the second happens to be the repulsive term there, which is a positive term over there. And this repulsive term B can be expressed in terms of the other components. Let us look at this, this also is very important here. That is, we are not getting into details of how do we get it, but what I am trying to just share with you the expression for that. If we just try to simplify it, we can find that B can be shown to be equal to the following expression here, which is again it involves Madelung's constant Z plus Z minus E square R naught N minus 1 and so on and so forth. And what you have here is, we have got a new parameter called as R naught. R naught happens to be the equilibrium distance between the two ions over there, and this actually can be found with little of knowledge of mathematics there. So, basically what we do is, we try to equate the attractive and the repulsive forces, and then we try to work out what is R naught, what is the equilibrium distance at which the attractive and repulsive forces are happen to be equal over there. Okay. So, what have we got? What have we got is the following expression. This is a very famous Born-Landis equation. Basically, this gives you a theoretical expression for the lattice energy for an ionic solid at 0 K, and we understand the meaning of all these terms by now, and this N happens to be the Born's exponent here. And if you try to analyze this, what you see is, this expression can be used to estimate the value of lattice energy for the crystalline lattice we are trying to talk about here. Further, what you see is that this expression is quite well known and utilized fairly well, but there have been certain modifications to even this expression, and they have been modified by we got expressions like Born-Mayer expression and Kapusky expression. So, basically all these approaches, they are the ones wherein they try to work out a repulsive interaction in slightly different way. That is the only difference between the Born-Landis equation and the other equations over there. Otherwise, both the basic premise remains the same, that is, we have an ion, we look into all attractive influences and also look into all repulsive influences. Attractive influences remain the same in all the three expressions. The only thing is, how do we work out the expression for the repulsive part of it, that makes them different there. Okay. Let us move further. Now, if we try to just analyze this bond lattice equation what we got right now, we find that this lattice energy becomes more negative with the decrease in the interionic distance that we discussed earlier also. And this we can show it here by the data, that is, if we look at the following set of crystalline solids over there or ionic solids over there, that is sodium iodide, sodium bromide, sodium chloride, sodium fluoride. So, what you find is, so as we move from sodium fluoride to sodium iodide, the interionic distance is increasing here. And if you just try to see the corresponding lattice energy, it is decreasing, it is changing in the opposite direction. So, there is a inverse relationship between the interionic distance and the lattice energy. So, because there is a inverse proportionality over there. This graphic also shows that clearly. So, what you see is, if you look at the sodium here, this is sodium ion here, this is fluoride. So, for sodium fluoride, that is the data here. For sodium chloride, that is a number, sodium bromide, sodium iodide. We find that as internuclear distance R increases, because we are keeping the cation constant here, we are changing the anion. So, when we are changing an anion, the interionic distance is increasing. As the interionic distance is increasing, our lattice energy is decreasing over there. Okay. Let us move further and see that the second thing which we can see here is, that is, the lattice energy is directly proportional to the product of the ionic charges, because we see that in the expression Z plus and Z minus are in the numerator there. And look at the following data. If you look at lithium fluoride and magnesium oxide, the two have got roughly comparable value of R internuclear distance over there. But if you look at the product of Z plus into Z minus, this happens to be just 1 in case of lithium fluoride and 4 in case of MgO, and we find that the lattice energy is significantly large over there. That means, in this case the lattice energy is determined primarily by the product of the charges over there, because the ionic radii happen to be roughly comparable to each other. So, having talked about the theoretical considerations or theoretical approach to determination of lattice energy, let us move further and see that how do I experimentally work out the lattice energy for a given ionic solid there. Let us take the example of lithium fluoride, we are basically looking into the energetics of formation of lithium fluoride. So, what you find is that lithium fluoride can be found from lithium and fluorine, and it can be represented by the following expression, that is, we got lithium solid which is reacting with fluorine gas and then gives us the solid here, the crystalline solid of lithium fluoride. That is pictorial representation of the same thing here. And what you find is, this has got delta H formation to be of such a magnitude, that is minus 617 kilojoules per mole. That is a large number again. But this is not the lattice energy, mind you. This number refers to the enthalpy of the following reaction there. This is not a lattice energy, mind you. This is just the formation reaction there. We will see that how do we get lattice energy from, because lattice energy cannot be determined directly like this. So, we have to see that how do we go about it. Okay. Now, if I look into this expression, that is the formation of lithium fluoride from lithium and fluorine, this whole process can be split into 5 steps over there. They happen to be as follows. The first step is vaporization of lithium metal, that is, we have got lithium solid which will vaporize to give us lithium gas, and then what you get is, this is the following is the corresponding energy of the reaction there, the enthalpy change of the reaction there. Second step happens to be the dissociation of fluorine molecule, because basically the lattice energy, if you recall, is the energy released when 1 mole of a crystalline solid is obtained from the corresponding ions in the gaseous phase. So, we need ions in the gaseous phase. So, how do I go about that? Because lithium is a solid here. So, first we vaporize that, we will talk about this later. Then similarly we take fluorine, but we need fluorine ion. So, to get an ion there, the first thing we have to do is to take the fluorine gas, split it into 2 parts, make fluorine atoms over there. So, we need this energy is basically the dissociation energy there. The third step happens to be that we got lithium gas here. So, we ionize that. So, get a lithium ion. So, this basically the enthalpy change here is nothing but the ionization energy of this. And then what we do is we look at the fluorine, we need to make fluoride ion there. So, we take fluorine atom, give an electron to this and make it as fluoride ion there, and since this involves capturing of electron by an atom, essentially the associated energy change is nothing but the electron affinity over there. Then lastly what happens is that once we got the fluoride ions and the lithium ions, these ions will combine together to give us the desired solid here, and the energy released in this process is called as the lattice energy, because lattice energy is by definition this one. And what we got, what we referred to earlier was the enthalpy of formation of lithium fluoride there. So, how do I go about it? How do I get my value of lattice energy from all this data? Let us see that. Before we come to that, so let us see that if I add all this expression here, so this expression 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when I add them all, what I get is the desired overall expression, which basically is nothing but the enthalpy of that means the expression for the formation of lithium fluoride from the atoms, the elements over there, the lithium and the fluorine over there. Now, let us go further and look at the following expressions. They are the same expressions, but now we have put in the corresponding energy numbers over there. That is, I have got 5 expressions here, that is the 5 steps involved in the formation of the lattice of lithium fluoride from lithium and fluorine, and this gives me the overall energy of the formation of lithium fluoride from lithium and fluorine here. Now, what I find from here is that out of these 5 steps, I have got energy for the first 4 of them. The 5th one is the one which I need to know, but I also know the enthalpy of formation of lithium fluoride. How do I go about it? That the way out was suggested by Born and Haber in terms of what is called as a Born-Haber cycle. Born-Haber cycle developed by Max Born and Fritz Haber, they basically it provides a means of calculating lattice energy for ionic compounds, and the basic premise for this is that it is based on Hess's law of constant heat summation. This is something which is based on the first law of thermodynamics, and essentially in this process we look at the thermochemical data for different steps which we just discussed right now. And then the law follows from the fact that delta H for a process depends only on the difference between the final and the initial states, that is the enthalpy change happens to be a state function. So, that is the basic premise for this law to be there. To understand this, let us look at the following thing. This is a kind of a pictorial representation of all these processes I just discussed here. So, what do I have is I am starting with lithium and fluorine, and from here this is the first step here, the second one, and then so on and so forth. So, what I find is I can get directly from lithium and fluorine, I can get lithium fluoride here, or I go through all the 5 steps I just mentioned about, that is the vaporization of lithium here and then dissociation of fluorine molecule and things like that. So, if I put all there, so I can reach from lithium and fluorine to lithium fluoride either directly. So, this gives me enthalpy of formation here, or I go through this whole cyclic process over here. That is what I just discussed, the 5 steps involved in the getting the crystal of lithium fluoride from lithium and fluorine here. And the law states, that is the enthalpy change being a state function, demands that whether I take this one step or I go through all these 5 steps and come back over here, since my initial and the final state happens to be same. So, this should be equal to the sum of all these over there. So, that is basically my basic premise of this law here, and that is what we make use of. So, what we have is we have got this number with us, and out of this 5 we have got 4 numbers with us. So, we add these 5 and equate with this number here and try to work out what we do not know. Let us see that. So, what you find is the total enthalpy change is the sum of the enthalpy changes of all individual reactions. So, that means the overall steps here, that is delta H formation, will be equal to delta H 1, 2, 3 and so on and so forth, and then the 5th one happens to be delta H naught lattice energy over there. If I rearrange this, I can solve it for delta H lattice there, and I find that this happens to be delta H formation minus delta H 1, 2, 3, 4, that is enthalpy changes for the step 1, 2, 3 and 4. Put the numbers over there, simplify, what do I get? I get my required desired thing over there, that is the lattice energy for formation of lithium fluoride from lithium and fluorine happens to be 1050 kilojoules. So, that is the lattice energy, and that is the implication or the application of our Born-Haber cycle over there. Now, let us sum up what we have done today. What we basically have done today is that we started by reviewing the contents of the previous session. Thereafter, we defined what is lattice energy. Having done that, we moved on to a discussion on the theoretical approach, that is how to work out theoretically the lattice energy for a given ionic solid over there. And in the process, we developed what is called as a Born-Landis equation, and then discuss its significance. Thereafter, we discuss the approach for experimental determination of lattice energy and explain Born-Haber cycle for the purpose over there. And we saw that we cannot directly measure the lattice energy for a given ionic solid. We take recourse to Born-Haber cycle, which basically is based on Hess's law of constant heat summation there. So, with that we talked enough about lattice energy, and the next session we will move on to the interactions between the intermolecular interactions, because so far what we talked about in this whole series of lectures here, we talked about bonding, where you talked about say covalent bonding, ionic bonding, metallic bonding. So, these are strong interactions between the constituent species there. Now, in the next session we will talk about what is called as the intermolecular interactions. They are the weak interactions. We will talk about that in the next session. Thank you.